Would you like to have a career in racing, and if so, what would you like to do, Dale?
Well, I want to be a race car driver someday. That's, it's all I've ever known, racing.
What did you want to be when you grew up? So many people live a life of what if. Go to school, go to college, get a 9-to-5. This is how we support our dreams, with a safety net. Because we're unsure about taking a leap of faith. Because we're afraid. As we grow, we cross things off our list of dreams. We cut them down, make them realistic. Having control of things is reassuring. But for some, the rush of being out of control is what gives them life. Some say racing cars is reckless. Maybe they're right. Out of bounds isn't just cheating, it's cheating death. Football fields made up in seconds. Decisions made in instants. For the people that climb behind the wheel of these cars, they're not driving it. They become part of it. It's an extension of the body. As a child, I looked up to these people, faces hidden by helmets. The less you saw of the driver, the more believable it became that they were, in fact, just part of the machine. It's easy to forget that inside the cockpit is someone just like us, but with the mindset that fear is a motivation, not a barrier. But the reality is, race car drivers are not like us. They never cross anything off their list of dreams. They just keep writing more. Daytona.
This is the finish of the Daytona 500. Side by side.
Le Mans. Indianapolis. Monaco. Places that used to be just places, now international symbols of victory. To those that enjoy the spectacle of racing, the 2 feet of concrete and steel cables are a wall between us and them, between sitting in the grandstands and standing in victory lane. These same walls are a stark, immovable reminder that racing drivers put their lives on the line for the sake of the thrill and entertainment. Despite the risk, despite the heartbreak,
Oh my gosh!
despite the cost. There are some on the sidelines who are fascinated by the danger. They are fascinated by speed, fascinated by the undying desire to be just a little bit better. Their dreams erased by geography, finances, or the lack of a famous last name. There are some who once wished to be a race car driver, but aren't, because they didn't get the chance. And they thought they'd spend the rest of their lives watching their heroes on television, or from the other side of the fence. They thought it was impossible to climb into a race car, so they crossed it off their list. But it's not impossible. There is a ticket to the other side of the fence. For those who want it bad enough, this is your chance. It all comes down to this, the final round of the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. Tonight, we give one driver the chance to kickstart their real-world racing career with Winding Road Racing's SPEC MX-5 Challenge. This multi-month esports event utilizing iRacing Simulator has brought us to the home of Winding Road, Circuit of the Americas. This track is a stage for the US Grand Prix, and tonight, the virtual recreation is the stage for one driver to rise above the rest in the virtual sim racing world and make the leap to real-life racing. Welcome to Winding Road Magazine. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined tonight by Finian Dcunha and DJ Alessandrini, the winner of the 2019 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. And Finian, we have gone from early April all the way to mid-August, and it is now time to crown our champion at the site of the US Grand Prix, Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get this done, especially because it's looking to be a really good race, or races on our hands here with two races here at COTA. The championship standings reset after last week, and now we got Ken Alcil, Jonathan White, Paul Darling, Robert Hartley, Michael Borden ready to go for the title.
We're going to have all that coverage at just about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but before we get rolling, the analyst that we've had in the booth all season long is DJ Alessandrini, the winner of last year's SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. Took home the checkered flag and the trophy at Road Atlanta last year, and it was only a few weeks ago that he finally got to claim his prize, which was to test drive and actually race a SPEC MX-5 Challenge car. DJ, welcome back to the booth. How was that experience at Road Atlanta a couple weeks ago?
Hey guys, thanks for having me again. And yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect when I got there, and right away, Winding Road Racing, they made me feel like completely at home, and yeah, it was just I think like the coolest thing about the whole experience was being a driver on a team, and your role on the team was to drive the car. And after the races, you'd have your designated crew guys come over and ask you how the car was, or like an example is toward the end of the, I think it was end of the first race, the brakes were getting a little mushy. So they came over and asked how the car was, and I said, hey, the brakes are getting a little mushy toward the end of the first race. Went and grabbed some water, came back, and they already had all four wheels off, and they were bleeding the brakes. And that's just kind of a little bit of a surreal thing, because normally when you're at the racetrack, it's a lot of hard work just to go drive the car around for a little while. And it was really quite the experience of being able to completely focus on my driving and not have to worry about the car, because the car was going to be like completely taken care of. And the car was awesome. It was super fun to drive, and I was actually surprised again and again how much iRacing transferred over into the real world.
Yeah, I guess that was my one big question is you won the championship last year at Road Atlanta, and that's where you got to test drive this race car. And you also had a pretty extensive practice session earlier in the weekend where you were able to really dial in this car. What were some of the similarities and the differences that you noticed between the cars? Was it just in general the dynamics, or were there some differences in the braking, or did anything surprise you about the car in particular?
Well, so some of the things that were similar from iRacing to real life is I like running wedge in the car, which so the people who don't know what that is, you basically make the car favor turning one way or the other, and at Road Atlanta you make it favor turning to the right, and that wedge works well at Road Atlanta because you want stability when turning left, like into turn 5 or 10A, which we just saw on the stream there. That was 10A. Now we're going through 12. And you want the stability turning left, but you want the car to really rotate and pivot quickly turning right for turn 1, turn 3, and especially turn 7, which leads onto the back straight. And after 2 practice sessions where I'm just kind of getting used to the car and everything, and come in, I'm like, it's a little pushy turning right, and it's a little loose going left. I asked the guys, I was like, hey, what setup changes can I make? Like, can we put some wedge in the car? And they were all about it. They like immediately, again, whipped the wheels off and had it up on jack stands, and they were adjusting the car. And after that next session, they asked me how it was and if they needed more wedge or less wedge or anything. And yeah, it was actually really cool that the way I find time in a car in iRacing, it felt the same way, and I almost made the same adjustments in this. In real life as you would in iRacing, and that was a pretty big takeaway. And then some other comparisons was how the cars act together, and then also like how you want to cooperate with the other cars, and how race starts work. And it's just the dynamic of the racing was so spot on. And I had to keep reminding myself, what would I do in iRacing, and it would help me in the real world. So like I would literally think about race starts in iRacing to help me in the real world. And yeah, those kind of things transferred just better than I would expect. Like even the way the cars drafted together, it's just yeah, I kept reminding myself of the things I knew in iRacing just to help me in the real world. And yeah, that's not something I expected, because I autocross and I race in Grid Life Touring Cup and stuff like that, and iRacing's definitely helped me in those things as well. But I've never had like the complete comparison, because I can't drive an 8th gen Civic Si in iRacing, but you can drive an NC car in iRacing. And like some of even the driving dynamics from iRacing into the real world, as you see the car floating through 5 here, like that's exactly how it feels in iRacing. When you're at the limit of adhesion, like that's what it's like. If the car feels like it's floating and sliding around on the surface, and when you're hauling it in real life, like it felt exactly the same. And right in turn 7 here, you use the same amount of the outside curbing. The car always feels pushy, which is just a compromise because you don't want it to be diabolically loose through 1 or leaving a 10B. So like the way the compromises felt in the car setup felt the same in real life as well as in iRacing as well. It was just, I was kind of blown away like how close they were together, and more blown away like how closely the competition felt compared to iRacing as well.
I feel like one of the other things we have to mention is that SPEC MX-5 in some regards is very much a step in drive series. And you already sort of mentioned that when you had a desire and you wanted to change something, the team would step in and do that. Obviously, you've got some experience in some other racing series. How does that differ? And how much easier does that make your weekend when you can just focus on driving and not having to play crew chief and mechanic at the same time? Road Atlanta is a very difficult track to go racing in the middle of July, because it's 95 degrees and probably 110% humidity. It is like it's like walking into a furnace. And just like keeping yourself in a good physical condition just to drive the car, it feels like almost like a full-time job, with like the amount of water that you're having to consume. Chilling is just important, like just getting some relaxation. So sometimes when things aren't going well on your car, you need to thrash on them. So to have like other people being able to thrash on the car, which they didn't have to, the car was flawless all weekend, but if they had to, they were ready to just go ham on the car and just make sure that you made every session possible. And I could definitely, there's Winding Road Racing handles a lot of arrive and drive drivers, and I definitely see the value in that. If I could afford to do that, that's the way to do it. Like just the arrive and drive, and because operating a race car takes so much of your time. So if your time is worth more than the money it takes just to have somebody else do it, like that's a huge value in my opinion, especially if, like I said, if the time it takes is worth more than the money that it would take just to write a check. I don't know if I'll ever be in that financial position, but it was an amazing experience to experience like what that is like. And it honestly gives me something to aspire to, just because it was so awesome. Now hold on, all eyes in the stream while I go 3 wide and 3 here. This is a lot of fun. well, you're going 3 wide right through the middle there, DJ, and it's such a spectacular show to watch. You wheel this car around, and you can watch the rest of this video and the other race that DJ ran at Road Atlanta on his YouTube channel. YouTube channel is just his name, DJ Alessandrini on YouTube, so you can catch all the rest of that. We've got some more work to do tonight, though, with the conclusion of the 2nd season of SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. So we'll see a look up the inside into Turn 6 here. But DJ, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. And for those, again, that want to watch the conclusion of this video and the next race, Find that all on DJ's YouTube channel. So we'll head back live here, Finian. We've got work to do because we have a race that's about to begin, and it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, can't wait to see this race and get this underway, especially considering how much is at stake here. Now, if you've been a longtime viewer of this series, have been following throughout the most of the season, you're probably wondering there's not much at stake. The Ken LCL has a massive points lead. I mentioned it earlier. The points have been completely reset. They haven't been wiped clean, but reset to the point where Ken LCL's lead of almost 20-30 points have been trimmed all the way down to 2. Just 2 points over with Jonathan White, then 2 back to Paul Darling, 2 back to Hartley, and then 2 back to Michael Borden, your top 5. There's still more drivers with points further on back. Every driver in the field has some points to their name, but really the top 5, I think, is where we're going to potentially see our champion come out. And their points for this race are going to count in both the race 1 and race 2, alongside the points they're already carrying over after the reset. So that's kind of the stage that we're set here. It's a lot closer than you think, and it's so much. And I got to ask DJ too. You had to experience this point reset last season. How does it feel to have pretty much most of your accomplishment from earlier part of the season taken away?
So I'm probably in a very similar position of Ken Husil, where you never felt like you're in threat for losing the points lead, and that's how I felt. And then all of a sudden, that comfort is gone, and that's a little bit of a shock to get used to, because it took away the safety of like, well, if this doesn't go exactly as planned, like I'm still in the lead, like it's fine. But when they do the points reset and it comes all down to this race, like it's a different kind of pressure to deal with, and it might affect the drivers in not having that safety, or it mattering more than normal, or it'll be interesting to see how the drivers deal with that extra pressure. Now, you know, I know Paul Darling, he's got ice in his veins. Robert Hartley, like I know those two deal with the pressure really well. Ken Husil autocrosses, and I've seen him pull off amazing autocross runs under high pressure scenarios. So I know Ken in the past has dealt well with the pressure. I don't know about Jonathan White though. Jonathan White might be the fastest driver in this series, but I don't know how he's going to deal with the pressure.
So with qualifying underway, we're going to set the grid for the first race tonight. Again, we'll grid our second race by the results. Do we have 2 races tonight, or is it just one? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Should be 2.
Could be 2 races. So we got 2 races again tonight, and we're going to grid the second by the results of the first. Let's have a look here at the track map this evening. Circuit of the Americas, full course tonight, 3.45 miles around here, 20 turns. It all begins with a very, very sharp uphill climb into turn number 1. That sends you down the hill, Finian, into the S's, which are based on the S's, Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone.
Yeah, and probably one of the trickiest corners on the track. It's so hard to get right, and drivers absolutely love it from the challenge it presents. It's definitely going to be a challenge for these drivers heading through the very much a rhythm section. Then through the S's, you come out to the hairpin on the back part of the track, and out of the hairpin, a long straight. And this is going to be probably one of the best passing opportunities for these guys with that long straight, ever able to use the draft.
Sets you up for a hard left-hand turn into turn number 12, all the way down to second gear. Then what's known as the stadium or arena section. That's turns 12 through 15. Very tight. That's where these MX-5s really like to be. Then a triple right-hander, 16, 17, 18, that chuck you back out for 2 left-handers, a fast, high-speed left-hander, 19, and then turn 20 to end the lap. So it is a wild course around Circuit of the Americas. Typically, well, it was designed with high downforce Formula 1 cars in mind. But these MX-5s here, DJ, they draft a lot. But one of the big discussions here is because it's an FIA Grade 1 circuit, it has FIA Grade 1 runoff with it. And that means that everything outside of the rumble strips is out of bounds, and we have a 15x limit. That's going to be a big topic on everyone's minds. You got to stay in that incident limit, otherwise you'll get penalized, and your hopes of a championship will be over.
Yeah, we ran here at Atlanta. Now I'm thinking of just driving a SPEC MX-5 car. We ran here at COTA last year, and we still had to deal with track limits as well. And what you'll see is everybody's going to play nice in the beginning just to have all those incidents in their back pocket. And you'll see the last maybe 2-3 laps, people are going to stop caring about track limits and just use those 1Xs that they've been saving up to the end of the race. And yeah, they'll just let it fly. So you'll see almost like 2 different races. You'll see the I want to be in the fight at the end with minimal incident points, and then you're going to see I just need to get out in front and maximize all the asphalt on this here track surface.
This here track surface. So with 9 minutes left in qualifying, our first lap's on through. Ken Alseal with a 2:37.704 Finian. One of the most important discussions about qualifying is that you have to stay in the track limits to get a fair qualifying time. You can't cheat that. That's an automatic system. So everyone that's got a time laid down so far did so legally. Once we get the green flag drop, though, that becomes a non-renewable resource of how many times you can run wide to carry speed. I'm not sure that it's necessarily faster, Finian, but it might be easier. And I can guarantee you we're going to see drivers be safe at the beginning and probably get a little bit rowdier towards the end.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to practice, two different versions of the track. One where you keep the car nice and clean within the track limits, and one where you get a little bit more experimental and you go a little bit wider in some places again, because you have that kind of buffer to use those incident limits. And of course, if you save them for the very end of the race, you can just go off track as much as you can. So look at Robert Hartley, yet to put a time down in the 0-3. Would you expect to see him near the front? But really, I think coming to the end of the season, I'm surprised how little in some cases we've talked about Hartley. Again, finished runner-up last season to DJ Alessandrini in the 2019 SPEC MX-5 challenge. So I'm curious to see what he does this time around, if he can potentially finish ahead of both Alseal and White.
He's been quiet, DJ, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been a factor. And I think he remembers the end of last season, just getting beaten out by a couple points. What's he have to do to prevent that from happening again? Alseal's had the upper hand on him most of the season. Do you have to get those elbows out and be more aggressive, or do you just have to be smarter and faster?
I mean, Hartley's just got to run the best races that he can possibly run and hope that it works out behind him. That's all he can do, because it's not like he can go out there and murder a couple cars and skate away into the sunset, because he'll get a penalty. So, and that's something that the drivers really have to balance tonight is being aggressive, because you don't want to be a pushover and get shuffled back a couple spots, because every spot's going to matter. But you also have to avoid penalties, and because one penalty. Every single car you see Ryan Cobb give a penalty to tonight means they have no chance of winning, because they'll just be too far back.
So once again, for those that have just joined us, we are qualifying for our final round of the season in SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge, a virtual competition utilizing the iRacing.com simulator to give one of these drivers a chance to test drive this very car in the real world. Thanks to our sponsors at LevelUp Racing School, Winding Road Racing, and Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment for being a part of this journey all season long. And a special thanks to Winding Road Magazine for allowing us the use of this YouTube channel to bring this to you. Again, my name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Finian Dcunha. We're from Sim TV, and also joined by DJ Alessandrini, last year's champion and current Grid Life driver as well, who just got his first win last weekend at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. So DJ, congratulations on that. I know not necessarily related to this series, but still finding your way forward in grassroots motorsports.
Yeah, I figured out how to get a win in road racing, so now it should be easy, right?
That's what they say, right? Everyone gets easier after that.
Man, I can't wait till the next race.
So Ken Alseal, big jump over the curbs through the S's section. Luke Pfeiffer is currently second, and this is a driver, Finian, that's been kind of hanging in the top 10, top 5, but really hasn't found himself at the top of the order, but he's got top of the order pace so far in qualifying.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he can seal the deal here. I mean, again, he's kind of out as far as the points are concerned, so really it's just him, looking to get a win and get it done. And again, another driver that's been really quiet. We're talking about Harley being quiet. Pfeiffer, we haven't really talked about a lot about this season entirely.
Well, Michael Borden in the 42, he got really solid at the end of last season, was sort of a factor in the season-ending race at Road Atlanta, and DJ tonight seems like he's got the similar pace. Now, if we head to a third season, and Borden has done 2 full seasons so far, if we head to a third season, what does Borden have to do to be faster in the early part of the season? Because it seems like it takes him a while to get warmed back up to this car, and then he's competitive by the season's end.
I'm only speculating here, but it might be he's not putting in the iRacing time until the competition starts, so he starts a little rusty. Like everybody else is putting a lot of time in all the time, and then you'll see, those guys start the season off strong. I know when I started last year, I started off real strong, but I was just coming off a winter binge of iRacing, so Yeah, I had played the most iRacing I've ever played when the competition started. So, maybe Borden doesn't spend a lot of time playing iRacing besides this competition. So when the competition comes around, he starts iRacing back up, and it takes him a little while to really dial in the fine details of what really makes somebody fast in iRacing. And by the time he's doing that, it's toward the end of the season. Now, something I wanted to touch on is, if you're Ken Husil right now, and White, Hartley, and Paul Darling are the people that could take away your championship, you're looking at Pfeiffer and Borden behind you as a good thing, because you don't have to beat those drivers. You just have to make sure that that you don't get beat by the other four below you. So you might run into a situation where you actually aren't fighting one of those drivers for the win, because if you just don't have to. So, or you might be able to keep those drivers behind you, but help them keep the other drivers behind them. So you'd pop out and let them draft behind you, or so forth. So other drivers being fast that don't really have a chance for the championship kind of throws a wrench into the underdog's chances of winning the thing. At the same token, if Ken finds himself back and forth and he's separated by Pfeiffer and Borden, and Jonathan White's up in first, well, now Ken's in trouble. So the drivers that are just out here for some glory right now and not necessarily a chance to win the whole thing, I guess they have a little bit of a chance, but that they really throw a curveball into the mix.
So, with qualifying only 3 minutes away from concluding, Ken Husil is currently the quickest driver by about a tenth and a half over Luke Pfeiffer, Michael Borden, Jonathan White, and Robert Hartley. We'll have a quick look at the weather. We're going to do it again before the race starts here, Finian, but track surface is 80 degrees. That's pretty cool for Austin, Texas, and I'd say the drivers will have pretty nice conditions out here, partly cloudy skies. So I would say that the conditions are going to be ideal, and you're not going to have to race the track so much as you're going to have to race the competitors around here. Just watch those track limits and qualify well, and you're going to be in a good spot. But I think for Hartley and Paul Darling, 5th and 6th, and Jonathan White, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they are going to have to get by those 2nd and 3rd place cars, as DJ was bringing to light.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see, what they think of it with them being in the way. Again, with pretty much Pfeiffer up in the mix, not in a chance of the standings. Everyone else around him pretty much still fighting for it, including Borden. So, and Pfeiffer, again, is not going to give a care in the world. He's just going to maybe, if anything, try to prevent wrecking any of the championship competitors. But he's just going to go for the win all the same. But Ken Husil showing the pace he's been showing all season up in front here. Still pretty close in qualifying in behind Pfeiffer. Everyone close by a few thousandths of a second. So it's interesting seeing if anyone can pick up the pace here as qualifying is coming to an end.
Long straightaways here at Circuit of the Americas, so the slipstream and drafting are going to be important. DJ, these cars at Road Atlanta, we saw in your video about a top speed of 122 miles an hour into the braking zone for turn 10A there. We're going to probably see at least that, maybe even better than that in the draft heading into turn 12. How do you manage the speed on the brakes in this car, and how careful do you have to be downshifting it in the sim versus the real world?
So in the real world, you have a little bit of a feel, or at least a better feel for where the gear is going. So money shifts are not as difficult. Also in the real world, you're not rewarded for super aggressive downshifts because the brakes are just slowing the car down. But in iRacing, it's a little weird where you kind of have to be really aggressive on the downshifts, and it helps the car slow down a little bit more. And what that does is it saves the front tires, and the front tires is really the thing that you're managing throughout a race, both in the real world and in iRacing, but especially in iRacing, you're trying to manage those front tires, and aggressive downshifts help that. I never did that personally last year because one blown engine is a night ending and heartbreak for me, and I kind of like my heart not breaking, so.
Well, I can tell you, Jonathan White, he just ran an immense qualifying lap. How about a 2:37.646 puts him within 700ths of pole sitter Ken Alseal for race number 1. So it's going to be a battle of the juggernauts of the season at the top of the order. The SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge brought to you by Winding Road Racing, Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment, and LevelUp Racing School. The time is now. 8 laps worth of racing. We're about to turn them loose. Finian, we've been waiting all season long for this. This season has been a little bit shorter than last in terms of the number of events that we've done, but it hasn't been any less exciting. It has also been decidedly a lot closer through the midfield and even towards the tail of the field. 21 drivers starting this final race of the season. That's what's been allowed here, but we're about to watch a great battle for a very real prize, and that is a chance to kickstart your racing career with a very professional organization.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake, and we're talking about you're going to be sick of us talking about the points reset, but that bringing it so much closer adds a lot more weight to the situation, because any little mistake from these drivers, who knows, you could see Ken Alseal going flying off the track in turn 1, and if that's the case, he might be out of the chance of getting the season-ending prize for him after dominating the series. So it is a lot at stake for them. You got to imagine these guys are under immense stress right now, because this is the race that matters the most.
Time to run through our... go ahead there, DJ. You got plenty of time.
I remember last year, there's just a ton of stresses going through your head, and it's a lot of it's like things you can't even control. Like, oh man, I hope somebody doesn't accidentally bump me or give me, damage or crash me. And then it even spreads into like, man, I hope I don't have an equipment failure, because that's stuff that happens. Like your pedals will fail, your wheel fails, your shifter fails, or just stuff that has been fine the whole season. But man, wouldn't it be a bad finally break, because all that stuff's going to break eventually. Just hopefully it doesn't break that time for the thing. And I just remember all those stresses going into the race, and I just kept having to remind myself just like focus on this marker, then that thing, then this thing, and just like go marker by marker, and then by like the third or second lap, all those nerves are gone. You're just driving. But man, sitting on grid like these drivers are right now, it's their palms are sweaty for sure.
Finian, let's roll through our starting lineup for tonight. On the front row this evening, where's my gridding graphic? It's been a while since I've used this graphics package here. Here we go. On the front row, the 94 Ken Alseal out of Pennsylvania, Jonathan White, the New Yorker, in the 22, battling for the top spot there on the front row.
Luke Pfeiffer bringing himself into the mix of the championship battle, going to be lined up in 3rd next to Michael Borden in 4th in the 42.
In row number 3, starting in 5th, Robert Hartley out of the Carolinas in the tan 03. Paul Darling rolls off 6th out of Michigan in the 55.
In 7th, it's going to be Tony Chow in the 68 machine. Kurt Crum in the 07 is going to be lined up in 8th place.
Row number 5 and 9th, Steve Ficacci out of New Jersey in the 51. Chris Taylor, New Englander, in the 53, starts in 10th.
In 11th place, you find Thomas Bresty in the 24 machine. Next to him, Riley Thompson in 12th in the 56 car.
In 13th, Nick Del Campo in the number 15 out of New York, and Kevin Zhu in the 43. He'll start 14th.
Drew Reihart's going to be lined up in 15th place in the 69 machine. Ismael Basso in the 16th place in the 40 car.
Gustavo Pergado starts 17th out of Florida in the number 11, and Brian Chabelski starts 18th in the number 12.
Alexander Lekowitz going to be starting in the 16 car in 19th place. Mitchell Peak going to line up in 20th in the 21 car.
Last driver on the grid will be Jack Sanchez in the number 23 out of the Northwest. It's time to go racing. This whole season long, 10 rounds have brought us here to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. The virtual recreation done by iRacing.com. Now the drivers will get to take their fancy video game to the next level if they win tonight. Rolling through turn number 20, Ken Alseal on the left-hand side of the screen in the bright green car, Jonathan White in the 22. Time to go racing in the season finale on SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge on the Winding Road Magazine channel. Green flag flies, and we're racing for all the money tonight at COTA.
Curious if John's going to hang around the outside here, or if he's just going to try to file in to make sure he doesn't lose any spots. Looks like he's going for it around the outside here. There is some runoff. You might as well just take the 1X now, but he's going to have to file in behind Ken Alseal.
And he'll slot in behind here as they head down through turn 2, but he's right there. As long as he can stay inside the draft, he'll be in a good position. Paul Darling up to 4th place already. He is on a mission. He's got Robert Hartley tucked in behind him and Borden in behind him. Now through the S's for the first time. High speed through 4th and 5th gear, jumping the curbs and trying to align themselves for a chance to win this race.
Yeah, and Jonathan White all over the back of the 94 Ken Alseal. He needs to pretty much win both races, because obviously we expect Ken to finish really well in both races, at least in the top 3. But you can see White all over the back of Ken, not letting him out of his sights.
Yeah, Ken's looking very accurate in the way he's driving right now, so I'm expecting Ken put in a decent amount of practice time. He just seems really, he's like placing the car within an inch everywhere where you would want it, and he's doing it pretty consistently. So we might see a real practice Ken Husil tonight.
Well, the field's going to stream out of turn number 11 and head down to the best passing zone, turn 12. And these cars do draft okay. I'm not sure that it's enough to really let you just blow by a whole group of cars like it might be on the newer car. But Jonathan White is sizing up Ken Husil. But there's a strategy to this here, Finian. You don't necessarily want to grab the lead right out of the gate. Maybe you're better off grabbing it with 2 or 3 laps to go.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because almost no one wants to be the leader really when it comes down to the last lap, especially considering the long backstretch that we have to work with, because you're effectively a sitting duck. So it's a weird predicament because no one exactly wants to be in first place, but everyone wants to be in second. So, and I would say again, Jonathan White probably in the best position as of right now, be able to use the draft. I'm not sure how Ken's going to try to defend from it. I gotta imagine it's going to be aggressive.
Ooh, big slide there by Tony Chow, the 68, gathered it up under control. Cold tires on these cars, DJ. Takes a lap or 2 to warm them up.
Yeah, I mean they should be fired up by now. Tony's just he's a madman. He'll slide around like a box fan or something. He's crazy.
So our first lap almost complete. Ken Husil. Now the danger for Jonathan White here, Finian, is that Ken could drive away from him and render the draft pretty much useless for the 22. So it's very important that the 22 keeps that 94 within striking distance. And Paul Darling, he can't sit 4th for very long. He's got to be 3rd or better if he wants any chance in the last 2 or 3 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And so far, the entire pack for the most part staying within range of the leaders. Seems to be a 6-car breakaway at the front of the pack at the moment. And again, all our championship competitors, the top 5 in the points, all in that mix.
Now, I've been trying to keep track of the incident points here, and if my eyes aren't lying to me, Jonathan White already has 2, Paul Darling has 1, but Ken has 0 so far, and that's just that's all I can see just watching. So Ken saving those incident points, those are going to be important toward the end of the race when like we were talking about in the beginning, it's going to be like 2 separate races. You got the beginning where you're trying not to get those incident points, and then you'll have the last couple laps where you're just trying to maximize your lap time, and the incident points aren't going to matter. They have a total of 15 to use tonight, and after that they get a penalty. There's 1 for Ken, so I'm just keeping an internal tally of where their incident points lie, see who has an advantage going in these last couple laps.
They have a 15 max before they will get themselves a penalty, and that will pretty much end their night as they'll have to come to pit lane. Ooh, big push into turn number 11 on Jonathan White. Now remember that going off track is a 1X, major car contact is a 4X, and you have to wonder, DJ, that wasn't a massively hard hit, but there is damage to the rear of that 94, so I wonder if that could have been a 4X and puts both of them in jeopardy of stepping over that limit if they continue to run into each other.
Yeah, generally if there's damage shown on the car, that was probably a 4X, so that's not helping Jonathan White or Ken Husil. It might be tipping favors into Paul Darling here, because that'll be 4 less corners they can run wide on to, gain that half a tenth advantage, because COTA's kind of silly sometimes.
Finian, this track is designed really with high downforce cars in mind, but with slower cars with this wide of a racetrack, it's all about carrying speed, and it takes you to the edge of the track sometimes, but it's not always necessarily faster to run out wide. It just ends up being more convenient.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, because the carrying momentum is so key, especially out of turn, think the final corner out of turn 1, out of a lot of these slower corners, because these cars don't get up to speed that well, but if you can carry the speed through, it'll make you faster overall, and that's why you might see some guys take some weird lines out of corners, just to keep the speed up.
Through turn 19, that's a critical corner to carry speed in for the final turn. Strategy-wise here, DJ, we've seen in the past that passing the last lap at places like Road Atlanta seems to be the key. Are we convinced that that's the strategy here at COTA, or would you rather be leading coming to the white flag?
I think you definitely want the lead. The draft on the NC cars in iRacing isn't as strong as you think it would be. You really just can't just hang out and just drive past the other car. And then also you got to worry about if you're in Jonathan White's position, you'd have to worry about Pfeiffer fighting you for that second place, because the moment he starts fighting you, you're unable to take a fight to first place because now you're stuck defending. So first place, all you got to do is defend, that's a much better position to be in. You don't have to worry about the guy behind you taking away your chance to win the race.
And the S's are such an important part of this lap and stringing them together. All about not compromising your exit speed, because this section, Finian, when you make one mistake through here, it just completely borks your entire lap. And you saw a slight mistake by House-Seal, and look at how much Jonathan White was able to close up through that latter half of that section.
Yeah, and I was watching White's and House-Seal's line, and White was able to make up a lot of time on House-Seal running through the S's just by going, just a little bit tighter in the corners. House-Seal being a little bit more careful, but because he was being more careful, White was able to take advantage, take a tighter line, and made up time for it. So he's looking really strong at 22 in the first sector.
Throttling up and getting your upshifts right is also going to be important. Can't miss anything up or anything down. Better get those gearboxes working strong tonight. There's a bit of some action going on deeper in the field. There's Kevin Zhu in the 43 trying to maybe side draft off the 56 of Riley Thompson. And Finian Thompson's relatively new to the series. He's only joined, I think this is his third or fourth round. But he's already been very impressive. He has a pass for third place going on as Paul Darling looks for the inside.
Looking at Paul trying to get that spot done. It's going to switch back now here to a right turn corner. You can see, ooh, Darling trying to keep Pfeiffer and not let him go all the way to the left, but Pfeiffer going to squeeze his way on by after some car contact. Ooh, might not be done yet.
Elbows are out here, DJ, and I think Paul Darling is showing that he's not playing around here tonight. You got to be a little bit mean. I don't think you can be nice and win this championship.
No, I think in order to win the race, I don't think you can play nice guy the entire time. You might have to ruffle a couple feathers and maybe be called some bad names over the communicator. But I mean, if it's within the rules, it isn't very often where you're the guy that wins and also everybody's favorite competitor. So it's just kind of how it works sometimes.
Well, I can tell you there's a bit of a gap forming between second and third. It's about 7/10 of a second, which is on the upper range of where the usable draft is in this car as we come out of turn number 20. We'll start lap number 4. At the conclusion of this lap, we will likely be right around halfway as you see House-Seal drop out to driver's left. The break the draft now swings back to the right. I think he found himself off into the red area, and that is off track. So you have to be careful. It's not just the turf and the runoff, it's also the red. White line and rumble strip is fair game. Anything beyond that will get you a ding towards your penalty count.
Yeah, he might have just given away a free incident point there, which means you can't run wide in one corner toward the end of this race. You know, we're not even at the halfway point here, and some of these drivers are at their halfway point for incident limits. So as a driver, if you find yourself in that position, then you know that, oh man, okay, I'm running more wild than I can run at the end of the race. I got to dial this back for a little while, give myself a little bit of a cushion.
Paul Darling's aggressive drive to get by Luke Pfeiffer was not successful. He's got Robert Hartley tucked in behind him. And once Ken House-Seal wins this race, Finian, if he can manage to do that, it makes everybody's job almost impossible unless Ken House-Seal has a very bad race in race number 2. So I'd say Paul Darling and Hartley, if they're not working together, they should be right now to take down Ken House-Seal, because right now ain't nobody taking it to him just yet.
Absolutely. It seems like we lost DJ for a second, so hopefully he can jump back in the booth at some point. But yeah, looking at these guys heading down the backstretch, and I'm curious here to see if Darling tries to make another attempt at Pfeiffer, because they've lost time. You can see the gap visually between second and third after their shenanigans down into turn 12. And speaking of shenanigans, looks like White's got a big run, going to look to the outside of the 94 here.
Big dive on the outside. Driver's right into the braking zone for turn 12. He's going to go the long way around. Can he hang on to it? He's going to have to take an off track here, run way out wide. Now, can he keep the lead as he comes back on track up the inside of the 94 of Ken House-Seal?
It's dangerous because they're coming in at very different angles. Both John and Ken do a good job of knowing where the other driver is. That's a tricky position because you actually have to turn your head to find them. Still side by side, leaving this last hairpin here. Jonathan White's taking at least 2 off tracks just to try to make this move stick.
Well, he's got to figure out how much is it worth, because he just completed the pass, and that might be what it takes to win the race tonight. You might have to take those risks earlier in the race in order to establish your position out front. So Jonathan White moves to the race lead.
It was a good time to do it, because if he failed, he wasn't going to be under attack from the third place driver there. But ideally, you want to do it where you complete the pass, and now the guy you just passed is under attack. it didn't quite work out that way. So we're definitely going to see Ken doing a repass here soon. I think Ken's driving faster than Jonathan White right now.
Yeah, and I was saying ooh because Halcyon got a great run out of the final corner. You see him going to check it up the inside. They almost door each other through turn 1, but it's going to be Halcyon that bullies White out of the way, and White, all that he did, all the off tracks he took was almost saying for nothing because he's back on the inside. Here he comes back.
Door to door, mirror to mirror in the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge, side by side through the S's. Can they make this work? It's all for the money tonight. Big jump over the curbs. The 22 slides ahead of the 94, and Jonathan White hangs on for now as they slip and slide for the race lead at COTA.
Oh man, these guys are out for blood right now. They're not letting. Normally we would see the safe races for the first race, just so they have a good starting position for the next race. Maybe we should do every race where you win a race car drive. Just saying, that's great driving.
Well, we'd love to get some sponsors on board for that. As we head down into turn number 11, 94 is going to have a big look up the inside. Not going to dive on the brakes. Looking behind him, there's Robert Hartley to the inside of Paul Darling. That's for 4th. He's going to take a spot away from the 55. Not quite. Darling's going to run wide to try to carry the speed, and he's back in 4th.
Oh, but Hartley's got to watch out from behind. We'll see if, I think that's Borden. Nope, Borden's not going to give Hartley a push. He's going to make the gap. We're too wide. This is looking like NASCAR down the back straight here with 2 wide, a couple rows deep.
And up ahead, there you can see Ken Halcyon making a dive to the inside of White. This is very familiar. This is exactly how they came through last lap.
Which battle do you watch? Everybody's passing each other down into turn number 12. And the 94 is almost going to clear the 22, going to run him out over the edge of the turf. And now into turn number 13, White should have the advantage here, but Ken Halcyon's going to try to cross him up. Great move to the inside, and a great scrap for the fight as they come through 12 now into 13, 14, and 15.
And during all of that, Paul Darling found himself in 3rd place. That's a crucial spot because now he'll find himself fighting to eventually get to the top spot. Paul Darling sitting 3rd in points. He's 4 points behind Ken Husil. He needs to win these races and hope Ken gets into 3rd place. That's his only chance.
Riding the curbs through the carousel, 7 minutes to go. This race will set you up for the second race of the night that will get you the chance to test drive a real race car. All thanks to SPEC MX-5, Ripnotech, and LevelUp Racing School. So far, it's been a collection of sim racing races across the summer season, and it's felt very inconsequential. Every single race you win, you go, okay, that was fun, we'll do it again next week. But now, this is the time where you have to show your stuff. Are you capable of winning a national championship and heading down to Austin to test drive one of these cars? Halcyon up drivers right into turn number 1.
I'm going to take a later braking point, trying to hold something around the 22 White, but White going to barely give him room in action here. Now, mirror looking pretty much like a mirror of what we saw last up. Halcyon trying to clear the 22, but White still going to be side by side here as they head to the S's.
Oh, can they run side by side through here again without contact? The 94 is going to manage to hang on, and so does the 22. Now crossover again. Halcyon back to the left, back to the right, back to the left again. Side by side as they come through turn 8 and 9.
Didn't think I would ever
outside there. He might have a chance to make the pass in this little bit right here.
Yeah, and I didn't think I'd ever see the day where I would see a crossover.
Oh no, they crash! They slide off the course. The 22 and the 94 get together. Darling to the race lead as they come out of turn number 9. Everybody scrambling behind them to miss them.
Uh-oh. That's all the way down the order 11, and this is exactly what I was talking about. He couldn't afford to make a mistake, and right there, he's back in 12th.
That was a huge mistake by both those drivers.
There's no way. Uh-oh, who was just flying through the grass there? There's no way that Ken recovers from that.
And there's the inside. Again, that's just a racing incident to me, guys. They're going for it all. I'm not really sure that you could pin it on any one driver. You had to make it stick. And the 22 slots in. He comes across the nose of the 94 just a little bit. We'll see if race control has anything to say about that.
That's super unfortunate. They just hooked together. A lot of times you can just get away with that contact, and it's just not a big deal. Yeah, Ken Husil, man, I wonder where his head's at. I feel for him so bad. I don't see, you just got to keep fighting if you're in his position, but I don't see how you come back from that for the night.
Yeah, it's all about damage control now, not for just the race, but the next race, because remember, we don't have qualifying. We're going to set the grid order exactly how they finished in this race. So he's got to make up as many places as possible within only, what, 2.5 laps, pretty much?
Yep.
2.25.
Maybe 2 to go this time by. He's back in 11th spot. Paul Darling sitting in 3rd was able to squeak on by. He has the race lead. He was 3rd coming in the points tonight, but he would walk out of this race as the points leader should things shuffle out how they are, and that would be huge for him. He has been quietly sitting inside top 5s. He runs way wide at the exit of turn 19. Here comes Pfeiffer to the inside. Behind him, a spin. Nick Del Campo off the racetrack.
That, you know, iRacing put a course cut there, and that was at the very edge of the limit for Paul Darling there. I'm wondering if he's losing spots right now.
Paul Darling has managed to hang on to the lead. Here's a look at what we just saw with the 15 of Del Campo. The 24 Bresci to the inside. He chucked it in there and got into the back of the 15, turned him around. We might see a penalty for that as we continue this race with 2 to go.
And going up to the lead, Robert Hartley just gone past Pfeiffer, up for 2nd place now. He's seeing his chance to strike here. Pfeiffer still not backing down, though, trying to fight with the 0-3 of Hartley, but looks like as they enter the S's, it's going to be the 0-3 Hartley up into 2nd place.
Guys, this race got real wild, real fast.
It sure did, and Ken Alseal's not done yet. He's back up to 9th. If he can get himself back up to 6th or 5th, it's still on the table, but if he finishes here, this night is over. You're not going to be able to run competitive enough and keep the other competitors out of the top 5 spots in order to clinch this championship. So he's got to get by this next group of cars, and then he might still have a chance if he performs very, very well in race 2 and has a little bit of luck.
Now, I'm going to pretend that commentator's curse is not a thing right now, but wouldn't it be a fairy tale ending? Paul Darling has never won a race in the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. What if this is his first win?
I mean, again, that's what you dream about, right? You want to win races, but all you dream about is to put yourself in position to clinch a championship, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a race winner. You can be Mr. Consistency and get it done, and Paul Darling has been in that position. He has not done anything spectacular this season, but he has been there every single race, and Alseal's had up and downs. Hartley's had up and downs. Paul Darling has had moderate ups for most of the year, and that might be enough tonight.
Yeah, he's been on the podium or flirting with the podium every single race. I can't think of an instance in this season where he had a wreck or a penalty against him. He's just been clean and consistent the entire race, and sometimes that's all you need.
There's Ken Alseal taking another off track now to get himself up into 8th, now to 7th on the inside of Tony Chow. And think about other fairy tale endings here with Alseal. We might have counted him out a little while ago, but if he can come back from this and win this championship tonight, what a night that would be for him to go all the way back to 12th spot and claw his way back to the field. It is a tall task, but it's not mathematically impossible for him to take home the championship, even after that setback earlier a few laps ago.
You know, if there was a driver to do it, it would be Ken. Ken, you know, head down. He's one of the toughest competitors I've ever faced.
We come through turn number 18 and 19. Paul Darling leads by half a second over Robert Hartley and Luke Pfeiffer. What about the 0-3? Obviously, he's not necessarily in a position to win the championship right at the moment, but where he is a pretty darn good point spot here, Finian. And I would say after him losing out just by a little bit last year, he's got to be hungrier than everybody else.
Yeah, and the way that they're running right now, he would lose 1 point to Darling, who, again, is looking at potentially taking the race, the points lead after this race is completed. So it'll put him a little bit more on the back foot compared to Darling, but still within a solid shot of getting the championship win as you see him dive into turn 1.
White flag in the air for Circuit of the Americas SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge race number 1. Darling snuck on through as the leaders tangled. Hartley now defending from Luke Pfeiffer in 3rd. The two drivers that hooked together, the 22 of Jonathan White and the 94 Ken Alseal, now they're nose to tail for 6th and 7th, buried in traffic, and they have a tall task in order to win the championship. The 94 getting desperate, jumping the curbs, Finian.
And also just a quick update too, we didn't mention about that incident between those drivers was under review. It's been deemed by the officials no action.
Yeah, I think that was sort of self-penalizing their DJ, so they'll get to continue without too much of an issue, other than the fact that they just might have lost their championship opportunity. But Paul Darling put himself in the catbird seat. Here he is on the last lap.
You know, Finian, if Robert Hartley won this race, he would then be the points leader as well, wouldn't he?
He would, depending on where Darling finishes. If he beat Darling by 1 place, he would actually be back behind him by 1 point because they're separated by 2. So it'll definitely help him if he can try to get to Darling. But with Darling's lead at the moment, it's looking kind of unlikely to catch him.
Are they separated by 2 or 1?
It's 2 points every position coming into the race.
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong sheet then.
So Ken Ausiel back in 7th place. It's going to have to be a monumental effort and for sure a race win and a lot of bad luck for Darling and Hartley in race number 2 for Ausiel to grab this championship. But considering Paul Darling's run this season, he has been in the spot to grab this championship out from under everyone's nose. I even mentioned before we went live, Finian, that a 55 of Paul Darling would be the underdog race winner if he were to grab one here tonight. But he is looking rock solid right now, and considering he'll have the pole for race 2, my money's on this 55 car getting the chance to drive the SPEC MX-5 Challenge car next year.
Yeah, so he's just got to drive through the rest of this race. Only a few more corners to make through without any mistakes, and he'll walk away with the win. Hartley in behind, still trying to push to catch up to him.
You know, there's so many deserving drivers to go drive that real car, like between Paul Darling, Hartley, Ken Ausiel, Jonathan White, like all these, the top 4 that really have the chance to win this thing. Even Borden sitting in 5th, if something real crazy happens, deserve the chance. And Paul Darling grabbing his first win ever in SPEC MX-5. I'm so excited for him. Paul is the nicest guy in existence. I'm so thrilled for Paul right now.
From 6th to 1st, Paul Darling outlasts the race leaders as they tangled in turn number 9, and Paul Darling grabs his first win of the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge career. In 2 years of competing in this competition, he has never won, and right now is the right time to win one of those races. He wins. Hartley 2nd, Pfeiffer 3rd, Ficacci 4th, Michael Borden in 5th. Ken Ausiel ends up in 6th, and the 22 ended up a little bit down the order. So we'll cover all that here in just a minute. We'll take a break and bring you some commercials from our partners that have allowed this to happen, and we'll be right back. Stick with us. Welcome back live to the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge from Winding Road Magazine, and thanks again to Rick Motec High Performance Sim Racing Equipment, LevelUp Racing School, and Winding Road Racing for bringing us the season finale and bringing us our prizes. The winner of this championship will get to go from the sim racing realm to the real world and test drive a real SPEC MX-5 Challenge race car at some point in the near future. We've had an incredible first race. Our incumbents coming into the night, Jonathan White in the 22 and Ken Ausiel in the number 94, they tangled together with about 4 laps to go in turn number 9. They almost spun out. It led the 22 back into about 6th or 7th spot, and Ken Ausiel to about 7th or 8th spot. As they came across the line, the 22 car had to hit pit lane because he had to serve a penalty for an off-track excursions. So Jonathan White is officially out of the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge, Finian, and after coming into the night so hopeful and so promising, it's all over in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and again, that's how quickly it can happen here when so much is on the line for this race. We were talking about it throughout practice, throughout qualifying. You can't afford to make a mistake, and we saw that with Ken Seal and White. While White's completely out of the picture, Ken is still in the picture. That being said, after the last race, according to my math, which I am hoping is right, Darling is ahead by 1 point over Ken Seal going into race number 2. And with that, he's also going to be starting from pole while Ken's going to be starting back from 6th place.
And so that recovery that Seal made was crucial because you said the gap was 1 point between Darling and
yes.
That is his climb forward. Remember, he was 12th after that collision. The climb back up into, I think he finished in 6th or 7th spot. That was a huge gain for him. That will put him right back in the fight here. So it is far from over.
He also did that in 3 laps. He climbed like 6 positions in 3 laps. So he has an entire 20-minute race to climb 6 positions and take the lead. If he wins over Darling, they'll be tied in points. I believe the tiebreaker is wins, and Ken Seal would definitely win in that category.
Oh boy, guys, this is getting down to it. I can't believe how entertaining that race was. It's about to get even more entertaining. So Seal will have to start in 6th, but the competition, we did not see a lot of forward progress by anybody until the chaos and carnage started in that middle sector on lap number 5. So I would expect it to be pretty difficult for Seal to make up 5 spots, and Paul Darling is going to have to run away very quickly, Finian, if he wants to drive away from the 94 and leave him without any chance of claiming the champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to get really interesting here. Ken's got to put on the drive of his season. He's done a really good, solid job throughout the rest of the races. But again, this is where it counts the most. He has to make up the spots. Otherwise, he's going to lose out on that drive.
The 22 of Jonathan White did grid towards the tail of the field, but it's over now in terms of a championship, Finian, with that finishing position that he had. It's over for Jonathan White. And what a season it has been for him, but just not quite enough this season, unfortunately. And he'll start 18th for this one. On the front row, it's going to be Paul Darling and Robert Hartley, your starting lineup on the left-hand side of the screen. And take a note where Seal is. He's got to make up 3 rows of time before that 55 can drive away.
So Robert Hartley's down 3 points, correct?
For Robert Hartley, yes, he's down 3 points from Paul Darling and Ken Seal. So he's again also in the mix, but he's gonna have to finish not only ahead of Paul Darling, but also gotta hope that Darling drops down the order a little bit as well. So he's pretty much just has to go out there and win. Darling, on the other hand, just really needs to make sure that he finishes ahead of Seal. That being said, if Darling and Seal tie, which is very, very possible heading into this race, I'm not exactly sure what the tiebreaker is. I would imagine it's down to wins, which would definitely go to the 94.
Paul Darling's mission right now, DJ, it is very simple. Win the race. If you win the race, anything else that happens doesn't matter for Paul Darling. If you don't win, then it gets really interesting at the front of the order here.
You know, if Paul Darling is running a breakneck pace and kind of spreads out the group, that makes it harder for Ken Seal to pass the people that he needs to get by, because those people will have the draft of a very fast car in front of them. Now, if Paul Darling finds that those cars behind him are working with him, that's also going to make his life a lot easier. Now, at any point, if Paul Darling starts making mistakes or those cars behind him are fighting him, then that's going to make Ken Seal's life a lot easier, because there's going to be stack-ups, which is going to create opportunities for Ken Seal to pass people.
It's the final race of the season. It all comes down to this. The SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge will crown a champion at the end of this race. Paul Darling leads the points by 1 over the green and white 94 of Ken Seal. As they come to the start-finish line at Circuit of the Americas, the green flag is going to fly, and we're racing for the final time this season, and we'll crown a champion in 8 laps' time.
And a mess of cars heading down into turn 1, guys. 3, even 4 wide here.
Into the first corner, everyone tiptoeing right now. Look at Seal on the outside, already up to 4th place. Now he gained 2 spots in 1 corner. That's critical for him. Now he's going for 3rd. What an impressive start by the 94. Will get him in position to reclaim his championship lead if he can get back to the front as they head through the S's.
Oh, and Paul Darling already lost a spot, so those drivers, I think, are all essentially, they're tied right now.
Whoa, trouble behind.
Paul Darling.
The 11 of Gustavo Pergano is going to spin in the S's. Some side-by-side car contact. Jonathan White's also spun around. More contact up the road, but at the front, it's clean and tidy right now, but the 55 has lost the spot to the 03. All good and dandy, though, Finian, as long as he stays in front of the 94, as long as I understand things the right way.
Yeah, and it's Darling with a one-up on how Sealy can't afford to let them tie, and that would be if how Seal gets ahead of Darling. So yeah, again, the 55 mission, keep Ken behind him at all costs.
Okay, so yeah, so I was understanding yeah, so right now, as it sits, Paul Darling would be the winner. If you're Paul Darling, you might just be just hoping that Hartley runs the fastest race he's ever ran, and you just sit in the draft and defend, because defending with the draft is going to be much, much easier than defending without one.
Alexander Lekowitz, a little bit of a spin in turn number 11. He'll get back rolling, but all the eyes are focused on the top three. Hartley, Darling, and Hausiel, the only three drivers right now that have a legitimate chance at winning the championship. That 55 in second has it as it stands, but that green and white 94 has to stay in his mirrors if he wants that to be a reality.
I mean, Ken did exactly what he needed to do on that race start, though. That might be the start of the year for Ken. He jumped up 3 places, and there were 3 tough places right in the beginning, and that's entirely what he needed to do.
Some contact between Hartley and Darling as they head into a tight part of the track. A little bit of contact. They were both able to keep it going the right direction, but
that tight part of the track is called turn 15.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them here, Finn. I don't blame you.
There's
But
a lot of
there's many tight parts of the track, but that was turn 15 where that contact was just front to tail. I don't see any physical damage on those cars, but again, keep an eye on those. Well, I guess can't keep an eye on it. Keep in mind those incident counts, because if you step over like the 22 did, game over.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for Jonathan White. Like, that's just an unfortunate a way to have your championship hopes just erased, is with incident points.
Run up the hill towards turn number 1, using the gravity to help slow the car down. Hausiel in behind the 55. You have to imagine, Finian, that he has scienced out the point situation. He must know that he needs to beat that 55, and they're going to run door to door at the exit of turn number 1, and Paul Darling must know that that 94 needs to stay behind him.
Yeah, you can tell the way that they're racing. They're not exact. Both of these guys are not really exactly concerned by Hartley, because Hartley still going to finish in behind them in the points. They're more concerned about each other, because they're fighting pretty much for the championship right here on track.
But this fight is helping Paul Darling, because it's giving him a gap to Hartley, which gives him a draft on the best passing opportunity, which is the back straight. So if you're Ken Hausiel, you almost want to force Paul Darling to fight Robert Hartley, and then you clean up the scraps by giving Paul like a bump draft or something like that going down the back straight. So you encourage that fight, so there's something to pick up afterwards.
Into the hairpin. Look at Hausiel stepping out to driver's left. Is this a distraction for the 55, or does Paul Darling have the 94 right where he wants him, DJ?
Yeah, this is an interesting game of mental fortitude right now, because Paul Darling has got to be feeling the pressure. He was just thrusted into a position where he could win this whole thing, and that's probably not entirely something. See right here, he has to fight Hartley. Probably didn't want to, but now has to try to make the pass anyways. If he does not make this stick, Ken Hausiel will get around him. So he has to make this pass stick.
Big dive into turn number 12, and he's through. Paul Darling to the race lead. Now, can Hartley get it back on the inside? He cannot. Paul Darling back to the top spot from pole in race 2. Hausiel buried 2 spots back.
Yeah, this is pretty huge for Darling. So at this point, you're going to do everything you can to keep Hartley behind you. You're going to be giving him all the draft. You're not going to be backing him up in any corners like you would with Ken Hausiel. He is your buddy right now. You want that buffer between Ken Hausiel and yourself.
Now, Robert Hartley, as you mentioned, DJ, is Paul Darling's best friend. Finian, if you're Robert Hartley, your goal is still to win this thing. You got to get back by the 55. You're not willing to play ball. So if you're the 03, what are you doing right now? Are you focusing on getting back by that 55, or are you focusing on keeping the 94 behind you, because you're going to need that 94 back there to even have a chance at beating the 55?
Yeah, no, he needs to get around Darling, and he needs to finish ahead of both these drivers, and again, needs Darling to finish a little bit worse as well, and same thing for Ken Hausiel, so he's just fighting tooth and nail for every spot he can get. Here comes Hausiel, though, with a great run on Hartley and Darling. You're heading to turn 1.
He used all the runoff, and he's going to have a big look up the inside into turn 1. Darling's going to stay driver's right, and look at the 94. He's going to clear the 55 into the first corner. What a move by the 94. He's got the top spot now, and just like that, 2 spots, 1 corner, the 94 back the championship favorite as they head down the hill.
This race is going to be out of control. I already know. What turned out in the race 1 leading to this, all gloves are off. This is going to be awesome. And I mean, if whoever of these top drivers win, it's just going to be an awesome story.
This would not be possible for Hausiel to win this championship. Think, Finian, if he had finished 8th or 9th instead of 6th where he did in race 1, this would not be good enough for him to win the championship. So that drive, that recovery after the contact with the 22, that is what saved the chances for the 94 to win this championship as he heads down the hill towards 11. That's got to be on the mind of the 55. You have to imagine Paul Darling knows the situation he's in.
Yeah, and I think really he's just going to try to size up the 94 of Ken Hausiel maybe over this next lap or two, trying to maybe figure out where he can try to get past Ken, because again, he has to get this title. And you were talking about it too, how he's just thrust into the limelight for that spot again in the championship. I think he probably thought that he didn't exactly have the best chances coming into this race, but now it's all on the line here. He's just got to get past one car.
One car. He's got 1 win to his name. Hausiel has been the dominant force here, DJ, this season. If Darling's now in a position where he's going to have to win both races tonight after not winning anything in the past 2 years in this series. That is an immense task, but if he could do it, what a night that would be. But it's looking going to be very difficult. So you see Tony Chow have an issue, and he might have blown the motor in that 68 car.
I hear they do that sometimes.
Yeah, in the braking zone, too early of a downshift and over-revved it and blew the motor out. So Tony Chow will call it a night here as we go back to the top spot. Now Darling is busy with Robert Hartley. Now this is a dangerous position for Darling to be in, distracted by the 03 now with the 94 out front.
Yeah, I mean, you have a ticked off Ken Hausiel in front of you, and if Ken is anything like me, when you're the perfect blend of angry, that's when you're setting your fastest laps. And I mean, just look at the gap between Paul and Ken right now. That's just 1 lap, and it's a decent, healthy gap. Now, if you're Paul, maybe you have to bleed off some of those off tracks just to get a good run out of a corner here, corner there to make up that gap again. You know, Ken Hausiel used about 3 off tracks to get that pass done on Paul Darling. So Paul, at this point, from what I could tell, has less incident points than Ken Hausiel that might pay dividends toward the end of the race.
Again, a non-renewable resource, and we saw Ken Hausiel run about 3 car widths off track in turn number 20 to carry the speed in order to drive by Paul Darling and Robert Hartley. And again, gloves are off. You can do whatever you want in those off-track areas, but again, you're limited to 15x. 15 times you can do that. But whatever you do out there is pretty much fair game as long as you're not coming back on track and wrecking people. So the 94 used that loophole in the rules pretty effectively. You see Robert Hartley take a big chunk of curb, trying to keep Luke Pfeiffer behind him.
Not exactly making out ground. That gap's been kind of managed, if not Hausiel's been pulling away here, especially through the first sector of track. So Darling, he's got to find something here because Ken's actually slowly pulling away from the 55.
On the brakes, look at Robert Hartley. He's in really deep into turn number 11, almost got in the back of him. But again, this comes down to sizing up the 94. Again, I don't think you can win unless you're in the lead on that last lap.
This is just so intense. I'm not even sure what words to say. Like I know the mental battle going on inside these drivers' heads right now. They're just there's so much pressure, and the focus is so intense that you almost don't feel the pressure just because you're so enveloped in the thing that you're doing. But it's always a little bit of a mental battle to keep reminding yourself to not think about what's at stake and focusing on the task. And to me, that's one of the hardest things in these big races is the constant mental shift back into, man, I gotta focus on these brake markers, not oh, if I'm here I win, if I'm not here I don't win. Like just maximize your car, do the best race you can, and hope that the points line up where you need them.
2 notes to make note of here. Paul Darling won race 1 from 6th position. And now Seal started this race in 6th. Also a note from our race organizer, Dave Fitzgerald, the race results or the official points results will not be assumed. We will have to wait for the official results after the points are tallied. So there will not be an official call of the championship winner until the points are tallied after the race. So just keep that in mind as Paul Darling continues to try to chase down Ken Alseal as we're halfway through race number 2.
We should get all the contestants up on a stage. We'll have an envelope, like a rose ceremony.
Well, there's always that one thing that I trust Finian. He's not quite as good as Larry Mack, but I trust him. But we're gonna wait till after to get the official standings, just so that we don't have any disasters where we say one thing and the result is actually another. So
yeah, we'll call it an unofficial champion. So
I want Dave Fitzgerald to be the host too. Sorry, Kyle, but he has an accent, so he wins.
He has us all beat. Through turn number 9, the trouble spot in the opening race of the night where Alseal found the end of his winning run. Big jump over the curb, but that lead has established itself out to 0.6 of a second. DJ, is there any chance that Darling runs it back down?
You know, Ken Alseal might be burning off his equipment right now, but like I said toward the beginning of the broadcast, Ken just looks really accurate. Like just the way he's placing his car. He's an inch from an off track, leaving almost every single corner, and he's
trouble! Hartley spins the 55, and it's all over for Paul Darling.
That's it.
That's all she wrote.
Oh, that's a heartbreaker. I feel like that feeling in your throat when you're about to cry. It's you hate to see that, and I know Hartley's got to feel awful as well.
Just too late into the braking zone, just misjudged it, and that's all it took to end the chances for Paul Darling. Game over, and his race win earlier tonight, his first of his career in SPEC MX-5 Challenge. That's going to be it for the evening.
We had a first for Paul on the season in both accounts. He hasn't been wrecked, and he never won a race, and unfortunately, he grabbed both of those first times tonight. Well, and Ken Alseal he just has to protect the car and don't mischief at all, because I don't know if we can take any more heartbreak up here in the booth.
Ken Alseal in race number 1 tangled with the 22 of Jonathan White. He spun out, ended up returning to the racetrack in 12th place. Had he finished there, and had Paul Darling not gotten spun out a couple moments ago, Paul Darling might have won this championship here tonight. But Alseal drove back through the field in race 1. On a charge back forward, he finished 6th. He was only 1 point back coming into the second race, and now he stands leading by 3.5 seconds with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, with that incident, Hartley was given a drive-through penalty, but I mean, I'm sure Darling does not care about that at all. He would like his position and track position back, but he can't give that back up, and you see Hartley serve that penalty. But man, it's unfortunate to see both of our other championship competitors taken out in one swoop.
Well, as much as Darling is devastated, I'm sure Robert Hartley is as well, not only for his championship chances, but also it really, really, really sucks to inadvertently take out somebody that's also competing for a championship, DJ. And so I'm sure that'll be something that Hartley remembers for a long time. That's not going to come off the conscience very easily. And I sort of feel for the 0-3 as well. Just one miscalculation, and it's over for both of them.
You know, I mean, Paul Darling only has to come in second place, correct?
No, they were in that position, according to my calculations, they would tie, and I'm pretty sure that Ken Alseal would break the tiebreaker in that scenario.
Okay, because second place isn't unattainable. Like, that's second place up in front of him. But yeah, if the tiebreaker comes down to, I wonder where the brain of Ken Alseal is right now. Can we pull him in early for an interview? You think that would be appropriate, or you think they would say something about it?
I mean, well, I'm sure Ken probably wouldn't say anything. He'd probably just be focused on the track ahead.
He might say something I don't think it would be safe to say on the internet. it would roughly translate to an adult version of "go away."
You would just hear the Discord noise of like the mic being muted.
And I did just confirm the tiebreaker is race wins. So if the 55 finishes in second, the 94 would win the tiebreaker. So let's keep that in mind. And I do think that the 55 of Darling will get back to Michael Borden. He's 1.6 back now, but with Hausiel in the race lead, it's going to be pretty hard for the 55 to overcome. Now, there's one other metric on the line here is the incident count, and we know Hausiel was a little bit more liberal with the off tracks earlier in the night. And again, I don't think he's really at risk of running wide here, but it only takes one little slip here, DJ. We have no idea how close he is to that limit. And a slip here, a slip there, that's not over till it's over.
I mean, he has to do, what, 3 more laps? So unless he's like right on the limit and also he's not being pushed by anybody, you know, he could bleed off a half second each lap, which is a lot. That's really under driving the car, and be completely safe everywhere. You might be just hyping it up just so people stay engaged and watch the stream, but guys, I think unless Ken has like a hardware failure or something like that, like I'm pretty sure Ken is going to be the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge national champion here, and you know what, like he deserves it, man. Like he drove well this entire season. I mean, I know from competing against Ken, you know, I've been competing against Ken since I started iRacing, and me and him always had the greatest battles, and I was always just barely able to edge him out. And there's just like something recently with Ken, like I don't know what he figured out. I don't even know if he knows what he figured out, but he figured something out, and his racing has become like a calculated, ruthless, in a good way. Like he's fair, but he's tough, and he just found like this pace that's just unbelievable. Like Ken Hausiel just found this pace that he'll do a lap time, and I just find myself going, how did he do that? And he recently figured that out. So when we see Ken riding off into the distance here, and he's been the favorite all season, and you know, this wasn't him just getting lucky that Paul got, you know, collected or anything like that. Like that's this entire season stacking up into this moment, and not even just this entire season. This is the last 3-4 years of Ken Hausiel putting in the time, honing his driving, figuring out his racecraft, and figuring out how to be the very best competitor he can be. And this is it all just leads into this, and whatever he wins after this won't be the last thing we see Ken Hausiel winning.
For sure not. And season stats for Ken Hausiel: 16 starts, 5 poles, his average start second, 3 wins on the season, his win percentage 18. Average finish 3.25, and 15 of his 16 starts have been inside the top 5. A phenomenal season. But let's think back to Paul Darling. As disappointed as we were to see him get spun out, remember that the reason why he was in that position in the first place in the points lead was because Ken Hausiel got collected with the 22 in race 1. So I don't think either of these races have been truly organic, but it just seems like it's sort of finding the way back to its homeostasis. I guess I should say. But for Ken Hausiel, he's going to see the white flag, and it's 3.5 miles around COTA, and he might walk out as the season champion and get his chance in one of these cars for real.
Yeah, he's got 4.5 seconds to bleed off, so he can pretty much coast to the last lap. He's definitely not going to do that. He's going to still push, because that's the type of competitor he is. Behind them, Paul Darling and Borden getting closer and closer together. Darling has a shot at getting up into second place again. That would tie them. Still not give Darling the lead in the points, but I think it'll mean something to him at least that he was able to fight back somewhat.
He's 8/10 back, and it's still going to be a pretty tall task to get back there. But either way, I think he'll end up with 2 podiums on the night, something strong to maybe take into next season. But you have to feel for Paul Darling. So gentle, so calculated in everything that he says. I met him for the first time this weekend, and we had this discussion during the break earlier between race 1 and 2, how awesome of a guy Paul Darling is. And he's just so quiet and calculated and just says all the right things. He's a great guy, and I feel for him. But there's always next season, and he's found himself even closer than I think he even expected tonight. So it is definitely not a loss. He is closing in on Michael Borden for a second, though. And he's about 4/10 back as we come into the hairpin.
But Paul Darling has a persona that I imagine most race car drivers having, where Paul will never say something dumb. Like if he opens his mouth and says something, it's going to be one of the more intelligent things that you hear for that day, or clever and funny. Like Paul is just a really smart, intelligent dude that's fast, and eager to learn. And I can't say enough nice things about Paul Darling. He's just he's a great guy, and he's young too. Like this is just the beginning for Paul. He's gonna figure out more things. We could be handing him the trophy next year for 2021, or if this competition doesn't happen again, you're gonna see Paul Darling win a ton of things in the future. He's a force to reckon with.
And thanks again to all the partners that have made this possible. Winding Road Racing, LevelUp Racing School, Rickmatech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment. They have put their money on the line to help one of these drivers go home with a trophy and a chance to win, a chance to drive a SPEC MX-5 Challenge race car. For Ken Seal, a fairy tale season. The white paint scheme denoting this is his first time ever in this series. He's going to make it count. Unofficially, as the rounds turn number 20, the 94 of Ken Seal. From wreckers to checkers, Ken Seal wins the SPEC MX-5 Sim Racing Challenge at Circuit of the Americas. Behind them for second, Borden and Paul Darling. Second and third, Thomas Bresci will have a great run. He'll finish in fourth. Kurt Crum fifth. Ismael Basso in sixth. Riley Thompson, Jonathan White, Steve Ficacci. They're trading spots all the way to the checkers. Jack Sanchez all the way to 10th. But the notable driver here, Seal, unofficially your season champion, and he will get a chance to kickstart his real-world wheel-to-wheel racing career in one of these cars in the coming months, thanks to Winding Road Racing, LevelUp Racing School, and Rickmatech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment.
Yeah, that was awesome performance from Ken, and and just to kind of talk about the season as a whole, like, we saw all of the drivers this year, and it was noticeable. Everybody just got so much faster and way better at racing from the beginning of the season. If you want to get better at driving, better at racing, this series is a great learning tool. The organization of it and the competition forces you to get better. It forces you to learn. And you will be a better driver having ran this series.
And for Ken Seal, this has got to be a very surreal moment. You work so hard for what seems like inconsequential race wins, and then in this last race of the season, it all becomes very, very real. DJ, take us through your mindset as you took the checkers at Road Atlanta last year. You mentioned that you had tears in your eyes. It just becomes so much more real when you come across the start-finish line to win the race.
What you feel is just like this, all that stress that we were talking about before the first green flag even threw. It releases, and it's a little overwhelming when all that releases, because, the whole season you're working for this moment and trying to get to this point, and you don't let yourself think about it too much. You get it out of your head. You don't want to think about it because it affects your performance. And then when you're finally done with everything, and you can actually take a moment to reflect on everything you've done to that point, how much it means to you, and how much it took to get it. It's a little overwhelming. And I know for me winning it last year, it was it meant more than I realized, and I didn't realize until after I won it. So I know Ken is a vicious competitor, and it has to be around the same. It has to be a great, amazing moment for Ken Seal here.
Well, we've got drivers to talk to while we wait for the official results. We can talk to Jonathan White in the number 22, so we'll have a conversation with him. Jonathan White, number 22 driver, you got a copy?
Hey, yep.
Hey, Jonathan. Well, tonight didn't quite go to plan. Race number one, a little bit of a tangle. Take us through race one and what was going through your mind as that happened and it all seemed to tumble away.
I really wanted to try and fight tooth and nail this time, because the entire season I've been way too conservative and way too passive. So I thought, tonight's the night. I'm going to give it my all and really try and win this thing. I think I passed Ken too early on. I think I passed him around the halfway point of Heat 1. It might have been a mistake, because then I had the entirety of, next 10 minutes to try and hold him off. And I think Ken had better pace than I did tonight. So after passing him, I was just doing my best to hold him off and really do my best to, have some good pace. But it seems like we got into each other. We're fighting a bit too much, and it kind of just got out of control.
Well, as you look back on your second full-time season in SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge, DJ was telling us earlier how much you learn as a driver in this series. How much do you feel like you've learned, and has it made you a better driver competing in this SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge?
Absolutely. I think that cooperating with others during qualifying is essential to doing well in the race. And I think that being more patient and being, sometimes a bit more passive, but not too aggressive, not too passive is the way to go here. Too passive and you don't win races, and too aggressive and you get what happened tonight.
Well, still no word on what happens next season, but if there is another season in 2021, Jonathan, can we expect to see you back? And are you going to be our next champion in this series?
I'll come back and I'll do my best to win, but only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Jonathan White ends up in 8th in race number 2. Not quite a championship, but still a great season. Jonathan, thanks for talking to us, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you, Kyle.
Move on now to Robert Hartley, who ended up unofficially in 13th place in the second race of the night. Robert, obviously things didn't go to plan there. The contact with the 55, obviously both drivers heartbroken with the result. Take us through what happened there and reflect on your season.
Yeah, the first race went great. Ken and Jonathan had their problem, and we gained a lot of points, me and Paul. That's the last thing I wanted to do was take Paul's chances away from winning, but I'm glad he was able to drive back. I think it's real close between them two. I don't know who got it, but it should be pretty close.
And we're still waiting for the official word, Robert, but take us back through this season. This is your second season, and the first year around, you just lost out by a few points to DJ Alessandrini. What was different about your mindset this time around, or did it feel very similar to last year when you knew you had to beat a driver and it just didn't quite happen?
Felt like I had good pace all year to hang with the front guys, and qualifying kind of set me back. I don't think I was getting good drafting partners or catching a good draft in qualifying, and them guys was just teaming up and putting in good laps. So it kind of set me back at the beginning. Tried to pick it up at the end, got a few wins, and overall it was pretty good.
Well, Robert, I think it was better than pretty good. It just didn't quite end the way you wanted. Congratulations on a successful season, another good points run, and hopefully we can see you back if this happens again, Robert, and congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to hold off on our top 2 points interviews for now, Finian, so we're just going to wait for official word on the championship winner. In the meantime, we'll kind of recap the season for you. As a whole, I think it was a very successful year, DJ. I think the racing this year, we saw much more consistent field sizes, and I think the racing as a whole was a lot cleaner, and I think we saw, especially Road Atlanta, was an amazing display of driver skill coming down through those S's and not seeing a single car go off. I've been very impressed this year with the driver skill through the entire depth of the field this time around.
Thank you saying Road Atlanta was a good display of driver skill, since that's the one I did. I appreciate that compliment there, Kyle. I'm not sure if you meant to do that, but kidding aside, yeah, the driving was real great, and the competition was solid as always, and just throughout the series, it was just it was really between Ken Husil and Jonathan White throughout the entire bit. Now, I heard Hartley saying something along the lines of he wasn't getting good drafting partners and stuff like that in quali. And part of me wonders if Hartley was too good, where people didn't want to work with him because then they would just lose to him. That is a definite possibility, because Robert Hartley he's a mad scientist when it comes to iRacing and racing in general. But I mean, the mid pack got way cleaner. Like this might be the cleanest, most aggressive series out there, and that's kind of how the real series felt as well. Like it was really aggressive, but it was really clean. Just to talk about the start of my second race at Road Atlanta 2 weekends ago, I thought I was going to get pinched down. I was starting third. I thought I was going to get pinched down by the driver on the outside going into turn 1. And he didn't do that at all. So I found myself in the wrong gear heading up the hill because I expected him to kind of be a little bit of a jerk, and he wasn't at all. And it felt a lot like the camaraderie that you would get in the Sim Racing Challenge in the real world. And it's just kind of cool how the camaraderie in the Sim Racing Challenge kind of transfers over to the real world where everybody's just excited to go do some racing and run some fast laps. And I feel like that's a lot how the sim racing bit is, and everybody just wants to get better personally, and I think if you participated the entire season, I think you give yourself a pat on the back. Like, you are now a better racing driver than you were when you started.
Well, we're watching right now, and again, for those that have just joined us, we're still waiting for the official results for the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. DJ last year had never stepped in one of these SPEC MX-5 race cars, won the virtual championship in the iRacing simulator, and what you're watching right now is footage from his event 2 weeks ago where he got to utilize his prize that he won in this very championship 1 year ago. And you're watching him at Road Atlanta as he climbs up the back straightaway. And DJ, take us through, just in general, this past year, obviously with the pandemic and all the situations that's going on, has really highlighted sim racing as a very legitimate tool to teach yourself racecraft, to teach yourself car control. But just explain to us what iRacing how iRacing has been effective for you as a tool in getting yourself not only prepared but also practicing for real life events, whether it be SPEC MX-5 Challenge or something else.
I mean, iRacing taught me how to race, hands down. There's no reason I should know how to place my car the way I do, how to deal with even lap traffic or out of class traffic, or all these scenarios that would take years and years and $100,000 to figure out. I figured out in my living room driving iRacing. So it taught me 100% how to race. Now you mix in autocross and go-karts, and then you factor in all those three, and that taught me how to drive. And when you mix all those things together, you get out to the racetrack, you are more comfortable than you're expecting to be, 100%.
All right, well, we finally have preliminary results. Here is the unofficial, well, actually, you know what? We got Dave Fitzgerald waiting with us, and we'll let Dave tell us what the results are. Dave, so again, you're the race director. We had a wild evening tonight. What are the official results for the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge, and who gets to take home the trophy?
Well, I think you guys understand that, it was very, very close up front, but it was Ken Hassel who pulled it off with a 1 point lead over Paul Darling. So it came down to the wire.
So Ken Hassel is officially the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge champion. Paul Darling ends up second by 1 point. Let's pull him in and talk to Paul Darling here, Finian, and we'll get a quick chat in before we talk to our champion. Paul Darling, driver the number 55. Paul, tonight, coming in, obviously a chance to win the championship. You won your first race in the series in the 2 years that you've been here, but it all goes wrong mid-race in race number 2. What was going through your mind, and what's going through your mind right now after you assess not only your season, but these final 2 races?
Just happy I finally got a win in 2 seasons. That was kind of depressing. Took so long. But just happy with my overall season performance, just getting podiums where I could consistently. And that last race was pretty intense. Unfortunate with the contact with Hartley, but I mean, sometimes that happens, so it sucks.
Well, again, 2 years into this, we've seen you run top 5 and just kind of be Mr. Consistency. But you finished in third in the race, in the second race. Is there any sense of disappointment, or are you still feeling like this has been an immense learning experience with the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge? And do you take away positives from this rather than the negative of just missing out?
There's always positives to take away, but I mean, when you're racing, you're always bummed if you don't finish P1. Second place is first loser.
Paul, I know it was tough and a tough way to end the night, but we thank you for joining us. I know it wasn't the easiest way to end things up, but hopefully we'll see you back again. And thanks so much for talking to us.
Hold on, before Paul goes, hey, the first win's the hardest one, buddy. So just get ready for all those wins you're gonna get next year. It's gonna be crazy. You're not gonna know what to do with all those wins.
We'll see. Hey, same for you, man.
Have a good night.
All right.
Congratulations.
Of course, Paul Darling, always a class act, but now we're going to talk to our season champion. Things looked like they were going to slip away in race number 1, but a solid charge from 12th back to 6th. That might have saved your night, Ken. You came on through, won the second race. You win the championship by 1 point. Is it real to you now?
Man, I was apparently I thought I finished 7th in the first race, and I was trying to do math while driving, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to tie Paul, and I don't know how the tiebreakers work, and geez, that was something, man.
What goes through your mind as you come out of that final corner? Obviously, you had a couple laps to think about it all by yourself out front. But what was going through your mind that last corner as you see that checkered flag and you know that you at least got a legitimate chance at winning the championship?
It was once Hartley and Paul contacted. I'm like, I saw the gap. I'm like, okay, I can just manage this gap, and it was kind of setting in, and it's like, oh man, I should just not screw up. And Borden started cheering me on. He's like, oh, Ken, don't blow your engine. And it's like, man, I really don't want to do that.
Well, obviously, race one, I have to wonder also what was going through your mind in that first race when you had the contact with the 22. What led to that? And did you think that your chances were over after that initial collision?
Man, I felt bad. It was just a racing incident. Like, in real life, if we touched, it probably would have been a nothing, but we just got hooked, and unfortunately we both ended up off the track and driving through the grass. But there was a strange 4X contact before that, and it was like just netcode, like didn't feel anything, loud noises happened, and we both got a 4X, and it was like, okay, and that's what ended up putting Jonathan over the DSQ limit, unfortunately. I think we both would have had a good shot at the championship in race 2, but it just didn't work out.
Well, LevelUp Racing School and Winding Road Racing would like to award you the chance coming up to test drive one of these real cars or another selection of prizes. But Ken, this has been a phenomenal season for you, winning a handful of races. Has it sunk in yet that you've won this opportunity? And if not, when do you think that will sink in?
I'm trying to think of when I can go get my comp license so I can race one of these things for real. So looking forward to it. I don't think it's quite sunk in yet. It's gonna be a bit, but big thanks to all the sponsors this season. It's been a blast, and thanks to everybody for the pretty clean racing and everybody for organizing it.
Ken Houseel, the 2020 SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge champion. From the sim to the real world, Ken Houseel will get that opportunity. Ken, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations. We wish you all the best. Does anybody have anything else for Ken before we move on to the post-race here? All right.
Congratulations, Ken. It was a well-played season. You deserved it.
Yeah, great job, Ken.
Yeah, thank you.
Matt, we're going to start to wrap things up here. 2020, we got Dave Fitzgerald with us, race director and organizer of the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. Dave, tonight I think we saw a phenomenal show. Everybody on the Winding Road Magazine channel got to watch some of the best sim racing that iRacing has to offer. And of course, the sponsors with SPEC MX-5 and Rick Motec and LevelUp Racing School. So many great partners that made this happen. Your thoughts on the 2020 season?
Thanks, Kyle. Just building on our last season, which was the inaugural season for this series, and I think it's just gotten much better. The schedule's tighter. The racing itself is phenomenal. Tonight's racing, when in race 1, when Ken got put back, my heart was in my throat. You just don't want to see that happen to someone who's got such a commanding lead in the championship. But from a spectator view, that was probably the best thing that could happen. I'm glad that he pulled it off and was able to resurrect his points lead, even if it was just by a slim margin. But it really doesn't matter, and horseshoes and hand grenades, being real close doesn't count. And then so I'm glad that he gets this opportunity. I know Ken from other leagues and DJ and I've raced against him for a number of years, and he deserves this. It's a great opportunity that SPEC MX-5 Challenge Series has afforded us, and I just hope we can do this one more time and give someone else an opportunity to take their basement racing to a real track like Ken and DJ. Even though DJ has been, dipping his feet in other series as well, I think he pretty much saw how a semi-professional series is run when he went to Road Atlanta.
And DJ, your final thoughts on this season. It gave you an incredible opportunity after you claimed the championship last year. You're good friends with Ken, so I'm sure you'll get to enjoy watching him take to the racetrack here in the coming months. But your thoughts on the 2020 season and looking forward to next year, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a good opportunity. I was joking around with you guys before the racing started tonight, and I said if these guys aren't killing each other to try to win that thing, then they don't know what they're missing. And I mean, we saw some murder tonight, so they definitely, I think they definitely all grasped how big of a deal it was. I mean, it was really eye-opening to me seeing how a professional racing team runs their shop and preps their cars, and just the way that organization runs. It was very eye-opening on to hopefully my potential future of just being a driver. And I mean, that's all of our goals, is just to go drive the fastest cars we can against the best competition we can, and this competition thrust you into what will be possible someday, and yeah, you just keep pushing and striving, and it's cool to see what that looks like before you're actually there as a driver. And I got to see what that looked like, and it was a amazing opportunity, and I'm not entirely sure if the words I could put together fully communicate how much that opportunity meant to me, and meant to me as a racer.
Finian, this is our second full season of doing commentary for SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. We've got to see some amazing things, but your thoughts on the racing tonight, which was certainly one of the best races of the season, and your thoughts on the season as a whole as we conclude here at COTA.
Yeah, pretty much everyone said it before, and we've been talking about it throughout the season as well. Some fantastic action on the track, but as DG pointed out too, especially really hard racing, but also really clean at the same time. These guys kept it going throughout the entire year. It was some fantastic to watch, and we never really knew. We always, for example, Ken House, we always knew that he was still pretty good and still finished really well, but we also had some other guys up in the mix throwing their hat into the ring, and it really came down to the wire for this championship, and it was fantastic to watch.
So Ken Houseel will get the opportunity to take advantage of that amazing prize offered up by LevelUp Racing School and SPEC MX-5 in Winding Road. Thank you so much for watching this season of the SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. Some thank yous to go out. Dave Fitzgerald for organizing all of this and working tirelessly in the background to make sure these things happen without any issues. Ryan Cobb for running race control this season. John D. Allen for setting up all these race cars every single week to make sure that they're easy and fun to drive. And thanks again to DJ Alessandrini for joining us here, as well as Finian Dcunha for jumping in here every single Wednesday that we do this. Again, my name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Finian Dcunha. We're from SimTV. You can find out more about us at simtvbroadcasting.com or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/simtvbroadcasting. The link is all in the description. Thanks again to our partners and sponsors for making this possible, and hopefully we'll see you again next time in 2021. I'm Kyle Heyer, and this is SPEC MX-5 SimRacing Challenge. Out for the season. Congratulations to Ken Houseel. We'll see you next time.